In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Vadere to create a simulation of pedestrian flow through a building. This system does require, I believe, Java 11 to be installed as part of this on your computer. If you're running on Mac, it's the same, although the base installation of a Mac will have some version of the Java virtual machine running on it. You may or may not have Java running on your Windows machine. If that is the case, please let me know, and I can help you get that set up. Okay, so once you install software, so you're going to basically download a zip file and extract it using Windows, and then just go ahead and open the or double click on Vadere GUI. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll bring up this window here, and this is our main interface for the application. And let me go ahead and expand my window here for the demonstration. Okay, so there's a few steps, a few things that you have to do to get this to work. And of course, you're going to start off by creating a project. So I'm going to go ahead and create a demo project. Click on OK. And the way that Vadere works is that you create a number of scenarios and then you run those scenarios. And you have to design a topology for a room based on that scenario. So I'm going to create a scenario for this demo. So I'm going to call it my demo. And what happens once I create that, you'll notice there's a scenario window over here. And once you create a bunch of these scenarios, those will all appear here. And then you have this editor that's over on the right-hand side. And this editor is the main piece of where you're going to be doing interactions with the simulator. So each of these tabs represents a different aspect of what you could configure with the simulator. The first thing I want to make note of here, for instance, there's this finish time, and this basically says how many seconds are we going to run this simulation, or what is the bounds for running this simulation. And I typically like to make sure that it's not going in, well, when I'm running simple things, I'll set it to like 100 seconds. So that, roughly gives me a minute and change, and a little more than a minute and a half. So where we want to begin also is we want to select a model type for the simulation, and basically this determines what behavior each one of the different simulants, the little simulated people, will follow. And typically I'm thinking it's probably an optimal steps model. They're basically moving in and out of the spaces as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and select that by clicking on Load Template and then selecting one of the models. And in this case, I selected the optimal steps model, and then put that into my model. And then after that, there's nothing that you need to ever change in this. And if anything ever gets corrupted here, you just go back and load a template. The next thing that we want to do is create a topology for our for the space that we're going to be modeling. And by default, what this does is it gives us a 10 by 10 space, a 10 by 10 room, if you will. It might be actually a little bigger than a 10 by 10 room, but anyway, it gives us a space for us to do the modeling in. And there's a few critical pieces here that we want to use. The first is we want to be able to set where the simulants begin their journey within this space. There are a few different ways that we can specify this. I'm going to specify a circle, and basically it says whenever you spawn a little simulant, spawn them out of this circle. And then we can set some parameters over here. And there's a couple of parameters that we want to set. The first is how many people are going to be generated. So I'm going to say I want to generate 3 people. And you'll notice that there's also a start time and end time. And this says, you know, for how long, how many seconds do you want to spawn that number of people? I'm not going to change that. I'm going to set that as 0, 0 for now. The other thing I like to do is change the ID to something that's a positive number. When it's negative number, it's basically an anonymous area. I want to be a little more specific about these. Now we're going to come back to this source piece in a second after I've set my target. So that's what this red arrow is. We want to set a place for where these simulants are supposed to end up at the end of the simulation. So I'm going to go ahead and drag a box there. So basically what's going to happen is the simulants are going to start here and they're going to make their way to this box or this rectangle, unless I do something to prevent them from doing that, and that's what I'll show you next. But anyway, so there's some configuration we need to do here. I'm going to set my ID to the number 2. So this one is area number 1, this is area number 2. The reason I need that is because over in the source, I need to say, where are my simulants going? And so I'm going to set that as a 2 as a target for this. Okay, so so let's begin with this. I'm going to save this, and I can do that by right-clicking on the scenario, save it. It's going to tell me what changes need to be made. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that. And then here's the fun part. I'm going to run the scenario. Oops, it went by too fast. You saw something happening there. And now that the scenario is done, it's run for its 100 seconds. I get a little report saying that happened. I'm going to close this. All right. So what we want to be able to do next is, of course, view the scenario. And so there's an output file down here at the bottom. So if I click on that, the view will change, and you'll see now I have a post visualization. And there's a number of things that I can play around with here. I'm not going to do any configuration yet. I'm just going to go ahead and play this. And so here you see our 3 simulants. They get generated, and then they move to the other side of the room. Some things that you can do with this. For instance, I can click on the trail. Here are the path that they took. And so if I rerun this, I see the path of the simulants. You'll notice there that I clicked on the actual person and then they got highlighted. Another thing that you can do is you can display which direction they were moving in. So you get these little triangles that push out in front of them. So anyway, so this is a big part of running the simulations, obviously, is to be able to do this type of playback to see what the behavior was. All right, so that particular scenario isn't very interesting. So I'm going to go back to the scenario and I'm going to start adding some obstacles. So let's make it easy for these guys to begin with. I'm just going to put a block in the middle of the room that they have to walk around. Oops. So I put that block there. I'm going to select this box, click on it. I'm going to move it over here. So now they have to walk around this thing, which, you know, it's a fairly basic operation. That, you know, they're just going to get here. They're like, oops, and I'm going to go around. Okay, so I'm going to run the scenario now. Again, it went by too fast for me to see what happened. And actually, I just clicked on stop because I don't want to have to wait for the entire 100 seconds for this to run. I'll click on that and then go to that visualization of this. And now I get to watch it. So here they go. And they're now going around the obstacle, right? So, so anyway, so that's some of the basic setup. I'm going to actually change this one more time just to add something interesting. So I'm going to select this box. I'm going to move it over here. And then one of the other things I'm going to do, I'm going to draw another one of these little spaces, put it here. And then I'm going to merge the space. So that's what this little button here is. It'll merge those two into one space. And then I can move the whole thing around as a contiguous space. You notice that I didn't select that properly, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the things that I accidentally created. Let me just go ahead and delete those. And then I'm going to move my funny shaped thing to a different spot. It'll cause our simulants to kind of walk around in a different way. So go ahead and select that. Oh, and actually, that was interesting. Let's see what happened. Is that when they walked around it, you know, they just basically chose that shortest path. And now, of course, I can play around with this a little bit. It's like, hey, actually, I want them to go the other way. So I'm going to close that area off, and let's watch them walk around it in a different direction. Okay, so I can watch simulation now. You can see they're going around in the other direction. So anyway, so that's just some of the basics here of creating these spaces. There's a couple of other things, other features that I'll show you in a different video. But that's the basics of it. So go ahead and you know, get the system installed and start trying a few things out. I'll have a couple of other videos that show some other nuances on how to create various spaces and how to add various features from the simulation system. Anyway, so that's the end of this this video.